Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatha Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishkam Vitamscha Om Agyana Timaranda Shagina Jana Shlaka Chakshura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gurava Bistam Supurakam Gurganara Sesha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipanam Shri Rupa Patanagam Govinda Bidamujwalam Bharatanum Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Bande Vishwagurun Shah Divyat Bhagavat Prem Noe Vijay Pranam Devam Devyatanum Suchandabaranam Balarka Shilanshitam Sandrananda Puram Sadekavaranam Vairagya Vidyamburim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Banditam Shubharam Madeka Sharanam Nyashishwara Sridharam Vanshakopatarubyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahamaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratabhishe Namah. So we're hearing from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, translation and commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupad. This is Adi-lila chapter 10, the trunk, branches, and sub-branches of the Chaitanya tree. Sri Chaitanya Paramboja Madhupebhyo Namo Namah Katanshid Ashrayad Yesham Swapi Tad Ganda Bhagbhavit. Let me repeatedly offer my respectful obeisances unto the bee-like devotees who always taste the honey of the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If even a doggish non-devotee somehow or other takes shelter of such devotees, he enjoys the aroma of the lotus flower. Let me repeatedly offer my respectful obeisances unto the bee-like devotees who always taste the honey of the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If even a doggish non-devotee somehow takes shelter of such devotees, he enjoys the aroma of the lotus flower. Jaya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gauravakta Vrinda. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Prabhu and all glories to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya headed by Srivas. E malera e brikera akatya katan ebe shuna mukya sakar nama vivaran. The description of Lord Chaitanya as the gardener and the tree is inconceivable. Now hear with attention about the branches of this tree. Chaitanya Gosaira Jata Parishad Jai Guru Lagu Bhavatara Na Hoy Nisjai. The associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were many, but none of them should be considered lower or higher. This cannot be ascertained. Jata Jata Mahanta Koila Tasavarganan Keho Kori Varid Nare Jeshta Lagukram. All the great personalities in the line of Lord Chaitanya enumerated these devotees, but they could not distinguish between the greater and the lesser. Ateva Tasabare Kori Namaskar Nama Matra Kori Dosha Nalabe Amar. I offer my obeisances unto them as a token of respect. I request them not to consider my offenses. Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prema Mara Taro Priyan Shakarupan Bhakta Ganan Krishna Prema Phala. I offer my obeisances to all the dear devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the eternal tree of love of Godhead. I offer my respects to all the branches of the tree, the devotees of the Lord who distribute the fruit of love of Krishna. Srivas Panditara Sri Rama Pandit, Dui Bhai Dui Saka Jagate Vidita. The two brothers, Srivas Pandit and Sri Ram Pandit, started two branches that are well known in the world. Sripati Srinidhi Tara Dui Sahodar, Chari Bhairan Dashadashi Griha Parikar. Their two brothers were named Sripati and Srinidhi. These four brothers and their servants and maidservants are considered one big branch. Now, the two brothers, Srivas Pandit and Sri Ram Pandit, started two branches that are well known in the world. Their two brothers were named Sripati and Srinidhi. These four brothers and their servants and maidservants are considered one big branch. Dui Sakara Upashakai Tasabarganan Jaragrihe Mahaprabhu Sada Sankirtan. There is no counting the sub-branches of these two branches. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu held congregational chanting or Sankirtan daily at the home of Srivas Pandit. So Mahaprabhu was always doing Sankirtan in the house of Srivas Pandit. Shiva Sangam, and this place where Sankirtan is always going on. Charibai Sarvam Shekore Chaitanya Seva Gorachandra Binanahi Jani Devi Deva. These four brothers and their family members fully engaged in the service of Lord Chaitanya. They knew no other god or goddess. Acharya Ratna Namadori Bora Eka Sakka Tara Parikara Tara Saka Upasaka. Another big branch was Acharya Ratna, and his associates were sub-branches. Acharya Ratnarnam Sri Chandrasekhar Jaragare Devi Bhave Nachila Ishwar. Acharya Ratner Nama Sri Chandrasekhar Jaragare Devi Bhave Nachila Ishwar. Acharya Ratna was also named Sri Chandrasekhar Acharya. In a drama in his house, Lord Chaitanya played the goddess of fortune. Pundarik Vidyanidhi Borashaka Jani Jaranama Loya Prabhu Kandila Appani. Pundarik Vidyanidhi, the third big branch, was so dear to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that in his absence, Lord Chaitanya himself would sometimes cry. Borashaka Gadadhar Pandit Gosai Teho Lakmi Rupadara Sama Kehonai. Gadadhar Pandit, the fourth branch, is described as an incarnation of the pleasure potency of Sri Krishna. No one, therefore, can equal him. In the Gorganadesh Dipika, it is stated the pleasure potency of Sri Krishna, formerly known as Vrindavaneshwari, is now personified in the form of Sri Gadadhar Pandit in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami has pointed out that in the shape of Lakshmi, the pleasure potency of Krishna, she was formerly very dear to the Lord as Shyamsundar Vallabha. The same Shyamsundar Vallabha was present in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes as Gadadhar Pandit. Formerly, as Lalita Sakhi, she was always devoted to Srimati Radharani. Thus, Gadadhar Pandit is simultaneously an incarnation of Srimati Radharani and Lalita Sakhi. In the 12th chapter of this part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a description of the descendants of disciplic succession of Gadadhar Pandit. Tara Sishya Upasishya Tara Upashaka Emata Sabha Shaka Upashakara Leka. His disciples and grand disciples are his sub-branches. To describe them all would be difficult. So, Gadadhar Pandit, the fourth branch, is described as an incarnation of the pleasure potency of Sri Krishna. No one therefore can equal him. His disciples and grand disciples are his sub-branches. To describe them all would be difficult. So we're hearing of the branches of the Chaitanya tree, and different prominent branches are being mentioned. Makreshwara Pandit Prabhur Bora Priya Britya Egbave Chabisha Prabhar Jara Nritya. Makreshwara Pandit, the fifth branch of the tree, was a very dear servant of Lord Chaitanya's. He could dance with constant ecstasy for 22 hours. Pardon me, misread that. Makreshwara Pandit, let's see. Makreshwara Pandit, the fifth branch of the tree, was a very dear servant of Lord Chaitanya's. He could dance with constant ecstasy for 72 hours. Apane Mahaprabhu Gaya Janardan Kale Prabhura Charana Dari Makreshwara Bole. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally sang while Makreshwara Pandit danced, and thus Makreshwara Pandit fell at the lotus feet of the Lord and spoke as follows. Dasha Sahasra Gandharva More Deho Chandramukh Taragaya Mui Nachon Tabi Morasuk. O Chandramukh, please give me 10,000 Gandharvas. Let them sing as I dance, and then I will be greatly happy. Prabhu bole tumi mora paka ek shaka akashe uditama jari pan arapaka. Lord Chaitanya replied, I have only one wing like you, but if I had another, certainly I would fly in the sky. So Mahaprabhu says, I have only, to Rakeshwara Pandit, I have only one wing like you, but if I had another, certainly I would fly in the sky. Pandita Jagadananda Prabhur Pranarup Loke Kyata Jeho Satyabhamara Swarup. Pandit Jagadananda, the sixth branch of the Chaitanya tree, was celebrated as the life and soul of the Lord. He is known to have been an incarnation of Satyabhama, one of the chief queens of Lord Krishna. Pritye korite chahe prabhura lalana palan vairagya loke baye prabhu namane kahan. Jagadananda Pandit, as an incarnation of Satyabhama, always wanted to see to the comfort of Lord Chaitanya, but since the Lord was a sannyasi, he did not accept the luxuries that Jagadananda Pandit offered. Duijane Katmati Lagaya Kunda Tara Prityera Kata Age Kohiva Sakal. They sometimes appear to fight over trifles, but these quarrels were based on their affection, of which I shall speak later. Raghava Pandit Prabhura Adya Anuchar Tara Egg Shaka Mukya Makaradvajakar. Raghava Pandit, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's original follower, is understood to have been the seventh branch. From him proceeded another sub-branch headed by Makaradvajakar. Tahara Bhagini Damayanti Prabhura Priyadasi Prabhura Bhagya Samagri Jai Kore Baramashi. Raghava Pandit's sister, Damayanti, was the dear maidservant of the Lord. she always collected various ingredients with which to cook for Lord Chaitanya. E sab samagri jata jahite moria ragavaloya jana gupata koria. The foods Damayanti cooked for Lord Chaitanya when he was in Puri were carried in bags by her brother Raghava without the knowledge of others. Baramasha taha prabhu korena angikar Raghavera jali boli prasidi jahar. The Lord accepted these foods throughout the entire year. These bags are still celebrated as Raghavera jali, the bags of Raghava Pandit. Se sab samagri age koriba bishtar jahara shavane bhaktera bahe ashrudar. I shall describe the contents of the bags of Raghava Pandit later in this book. Hearing this narration, devotees generally cry and tears glide down from their eyes. Prabhura adyanta priya pandita gangadas jahara smarane hoy sarvabandha nash. Pandit Gangadas was the 8th deer branch of the tree of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One who remembers his activities attains freedom from all bondage. Chaitanya Parishada Sri Acharya Purandar Pitakori Jare Bole Goranga Sundar. Sri Acharya Purandar, the 9th branch, was a constant associate of Lord Chaitanya, so the Lord accepted him as his father. As described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, that whenever Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the house of Raghava Pandit, he also visited Purandar Acharya immediately upon receiving an invitation. Purandar Acharya is to be considered most fortunate because the Lord used to greet him by addressing him as father and embracing him in great love. So Sri Acharya Purandar, the 9th branch, was a constant associate of Lord Chaitanya, so the Lord accepted him as his father. Damodar Pandit Shaka Primite Prachanda Prabhur Upare Jeho Koilabhakya Danda. Damodar Pandit, the 10th branch of the Chaitanya tree, was so elevated in love of Lord Chaitanya that he once unhesitatingly chastised the Lord with strong words. So Damodar Pandit, he was always very conscious of maintaining or watching out for Mahaprabhu, that Mahaprabhu wouldn't do or say anything that could be seen as something that people would criticize. So he took this position of correcting Mahaprabhu if he saw some anomaly in Mahaprabhu's behavior, kind of like as a guardian. But it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that he corrected Mahaprabhu in matters that were of no importance to himself, to Damodar Pandit, things that he didn't observe. He would correct Mahaprabhu on, because Mahaprabhu was showing affection to a young boy who was visiting him, come to see him. It was like a person who had some love for Mahaprabhu. He was a young boy, but his mother was a widow, and she was very young and beautiful. So So Damodar Pandit was very critical, and he chastised Mahaprabhu for giving so much attention to this young boy, because people would think that Mahaprabhu was interested in the boy's mother. It was like this, just so hypercritical of Mahaprabhu. But it is described that this showed his love for Mahaprabhu, that he wanted to correct Mahaprabhu so that Mahaprabhu would not be seen in a bad way by anyone. So, in fact, it was, to Mahaprabhu, it was, you can see, maybe Mahaprabhu considered that it was a sign of great love and affection. Can you turn on this light here? No, not that one, just this one. Mahaprabhu considered it was a sign of affection and love. But Mahaprabhu at the same time, he said, it's best if you spend some time in Navadip, because you're so attentive that you can criticize even me, and that will be very good if sometime you're there in Navadip to watch over my mother Sachi. So he sometimes sent him, Damodar Pandit, he'd send him to Navadip, but Damodar Pandit had a younger brother named his younger brother was Shankar Pandit, and Mahaprabhu also had that Shankar Pandit was very nice, and Mahaprabhu, he used to stay in Mahaprabhu's room and kind of give him massage and watch over him. We saw that in some ways, like with one of Srila Sridharmar's servant, who was later became Girimarsh. What was his name? Gaura Krishna. He was in Guru Maharaj's room, and he'd always attentive to him. And one time, he was in the room and giving massage to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, but that Gaura Krishna was so tired that he fell face down on the stone floor and knocked out some of his front teeth. Really? Yeah. Wow. But he was very attentive. So Shankar Pandit also was always in the room with Mahaprabhu, whereas his older brother Damodar Pandit criticized Mahaprabhu. Shankar Pandit was there, and Mahaprabhu would sometimes fall asleep with his head on Shankar Pandit, so Shankar Pandit sometimes described as the pillow of Mahaprabhu, as his pillow. Damodar Pandit, the 10th branch of the Chaitanya tree, was so elevated in love of Lord Chaitanya that he once unhesitatingly chastised the Lord with strong words. Danda kata kohibe age vishtar koriya, danda tushta prabhutare pataila nadia. Later in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I shall describe this incident of chastisement in detail. The Lord, being very much satisfied by this chastisement, sent Damodar Pandit to Navadip. Damodar Pandit, who was formerly known as Shaibya in Brajadam, used to carry messages from Lord Chaitanya to Sachi Mata, and during the Ratha Yatra festival he carried messages from Sachi Mata to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Tahara Anuja Shaka Shankara Pandit Prabhu Tahara Anuja Shaka Shankara Pandita Prabhu Pado Padana Jaranama Vidita. The 11th branch, the younger brother of Damodar Pandit, was known as Shankar Pandit. He was celebrated as the pillow of the Lord. Sadashiva Pandit Jara Prabhupada Pratame Nityanandar Jaragarevash. Sadashiva Pandit, the 12th branch, was always eager to serve the lotus feet of the Lord. It was his good fortune that when Lord Nityananda came to Navadip, he resided at his home. It is mentioned in the Chaitanya Bhagavat that Sadashiva Pandit was a pure devotee and that Nityananda Prabhu resided at his house. Sri Nrsinga Upashaka Pradyumna Brahmachari Prabhutara Nama Koila Nrsingananda Kori. The 13th branch was Pradyumna Brahmachari. Since he was a worshipper of Lord Nrsingadev, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu changed his name to Nrsingananda Brahmachari. So that's Pradyumna Brahmachari, and he used to worship Lord Nrsinga, and Mahaprabhu changed his name to Nrsingananda Brahmachari. Narayana Pandit Ek Bora I Udar Chaitanya Charana Binu Nahi Janiyar. Narayana Pandit, the 14th branch, a great and liberal devotee, did not know any shelter but Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet. Narayan Pandit was one of the associates of Srivas Thakur. It is mentioned in the Chaitanya Bhagavat that he went to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri with the Thakur's brother, Sri Ram Pandit. Shriman Pandit Shaka Prabhora Nijabritya Deyuti Dharana Chave Prabhu Korana Nritya. The 15th branch was Shriman Pandit, who was a constant servitor of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He used to carry a torch while the Lord danced. Shriman Pandit was among the companions of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when the Lord performed Sankirtan. When Lord Chaitanya dressed himself in the form of the goddess Lakshmi during a play and danced in the streets of Navadip, Shriman Pandit carried a torch to light the way. Okay. Shuklambar Brahmachari Bora Bhagavan Jara Anamage Kare Koila Bhagavan. The 16th branch, Shuklambar Brahmachari, was very fortunate because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu jokingly or seriously begged food from him or sometimes snatched it from him forcibly and ate it. It is stated that Shuklambar Brahmachari, an inhabitant of Navadip, was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's first companion in the Sankirtan movement. When Lord Chaitanya returned from Gaya after initiation, he stayed with Shuklambar Brahmachari because he wanted to hear from this devotee about the pastimes of Lord Krishna. Shuklambar Brahmachari collected alms of rice from the inhabitants of Navadip, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took pleasure in eating the rice that he cooked. It is said that Shuklambar Brahmachari was one of the wives of the Yogic Brahmins during the time of Lord Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Lord Krishna begged food from the wives of the Yogic Brahmins, and Lord Chaitanya performed a similar pastime by begging rice from Shuklambar Brahmachari. So that's an incident from Krishna Lila about the wives of the Brahmins that first Krishna was with Balaram and they were traveling and they said they were very hungry, so some of the cowherd boys went to beg rice from the Brahmins. but the Brahmins told them that they were still doing the yajna and they hadn't finished, and more or less shooed them away. But then the wives of the Brahmins, they were more devoted to Krishna, so they gave so much food to them, and then some of them went to see them, and some of them were restrained by their husbands, and they just gave up their body to go see Krishna and Balaram. So this Shuklambar Brahmachari is one of those yogic Brahmins' wives who were very devoted to the Lord. Nandanacharya Shaka Jagate Vidita Lukaya Dui Prabhur Jaragare Stita. Nandanacharya, the seventh branch of the Chaitanya tree, is celebrated within the world because the two Prabhus, Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, sometimes hid in his house. Nandanacharya was another companion of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during his kirtan pastimes in Navadip. Srila Nityananda Prabhu, as Avadut, traveled on many pilgrimages, and when he first came to Sri Navadip Dham, he remained hidden in the house of Nandanacharya. It is there that he first met all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his Mahaprakash, he asked Ramai Pandit to call Advaita Prabhu, who was hiding in the house of Nandanacharya, for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could understand that he was hiding. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya also sometimes hid in the house of Nandanacharya. In this connection, one may refer to Chaitanya Bhagavat. What's happening with the altar?
I'm taking off the offering right now.
Okay, it's been on there a half hour or something.
About 15 minutes.
Okay, I'm wrong. It's only been 15 minutes. I started the class, and I've been reading the whole time, and the curtains were closed.
Yeah.
All right, never mind.
I'm sorry.
Shri Mukunda Data Saka Prabhur Samadhyayi Shahara Kirtane Nache Chaitanya Gosai. Mukunda Datta, class friend of Lord Chaitanya's, was another branch of the Chaitanya tree. Lord Chaitanya danced while he sang. Vasudeva Datta Prabhu Britya Mahashai Sahasramuke Jara Guna Kahile Na Jai Nahoy. Vasudeva Datta Prabhu Britya Mahashai Sahasramuke Jara Guna Kahile Nahoy. Vasudeva Datta, the 19th branch of the Sri Chaitanya tree, was a great personality and a most confidential devotee of the Lord. One should not describe his qualities. One could not describe his qualities even with thousands of mouths. Vasudeva Datta, the 19th branch of the Sri Chaitanya tree, was a great personality and a most confidential devotee of the Lord. One could not describe his qualities even with thousands of mouths. Jagate Jateka Jiva Tara Papaloya Naraka Bhunjite Chahe Jiva Charaya. Srila Vasudeva Datta Thakur wanted to suffer for the sinful activities of the people of the world so that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu might deliver them. So Vasudeva Datta, the 19th branch of the Sri Chaitanya tree, was a great personality and a most confidential devotee of the Lord. One could not describe his qualities even with thousands of mouths. Jagate Jateka Jiva Tarapapaloya Naraka Bhunjite Jahi Jiva Charaya. So Vasudeva Datta, it's mentioned, he wanted to suffer for the sinful activities of the world so that the world of the world so that Mahaprabhu might deliver them. He said, transfer all the karma of all the jivas to me and let me suffer eternally if necessary so that they can get the sukriti of being able to come to Mahaprabhu's lotus feet and become devotees. So he was willing to accept so much suffering so that he asked so that Mahaprabhu could, all of them could be relieved of their karma. But Mahaprabhu told him, it's not necessary for you to do that because just by having a pure devotee like you in the universe, the whole universe can be liberated. So this is a feeling of, I remember also Govinda Maharaj when he went to St. Petersburg, he was there and he told all the people present that you will all be, more or less told them, you will all be liberated in the future. In other words, he was granting so much mercy to the people out of his affection. So Vasudeva Datta is this kind of magnanimity. I guess that's what it's called, magnanimity. It can't be understood that he was willing to personally suffer eternally so that all the conditioned souls could be relieved of their karma and get Mahaprabhu's mercy. This is so at one point I remember in one lecture, Srila Sridhar Maharaj said that Jesus Christ is celebrated for his self-sacrifice. But he says that like the Vaishnavas, like Vasudeva Datta, they have to such an extreme that they have what is called self-forgetfulness. That they're not interested in their own welfare. They're just interested in the welfare of. So one is sacrifice, and that's why Christ is celebrated for sacrificing himself for the benefit of others. And Vasudeva Datta and devotees, they forget their own self-interest. They are not interested in bettering themselves. They will give everything to give some relief to the conditioned souls. And that is the mood of Mahaprabhu's mission. His mood is that of wanting to give everyone the greatest benefit. We read that verse, I think it was yesterday, famous verse, Bharata Bhumi De Hoila Manusha Janma Jar Janma Sartaka Kori Kora Parupakar. That is, we can say it's like admonishing people, especially those born in India, because reminding them the purpose of real culture is not to improve oneself materially, but to that it says there that anyone born in Bharatvarsha or India, their purpose in life is to benefit or help others. So that's the mood. Whereas we can see impersonalists, they're just interested in bettering themselves. They're at the cost of everything. But the devotees, they have compassion for the conditioned souls. Harirasa Kor Shakar Adbhuta Charita Tinlak Namate Holoyana Apatita. The 20th branch of the Chaitanya tree was Haridas Thakur. His character was wonderful. He used to chant the holy name of Krishna 300,000 times a day without fail. Taharananta guna kahe din matra acharya gosai jari bunjaya shraddha patra. There was no end to the transcendental qualities of Haridas Thakur. Here I mention but a fraction of his qualities. He was so exalted that Advaita Goswami, when performing the Shraddha ceremony of his father, offered him the first plate. Pralad Samanatara Gunera Staranga Javanat Tandaneo Jaranahika Brubanga. The waves of his good qualities were like those of Prahlad Maharaj. He did not even slightly raise an eyebrow when persecuted by the Muslim ruler. Deho Siddhi Pailetara Deho Loya Kale Nachila Chaitanya Prabhu Mahakutuhale. After the passing away of Haridas Thakur, the Lord himself took his body on his lap and danced with it in great ecstasy. Well, here it says, Teho Siddhi Pailetara Deho Loya Kole Nachila Chaitanya Prabhu Mahakutuhale. And it's translated here as the Lord took his body on his lap and danced with it in great ecstasy. But I've also read in translations, the translation here is Loya Kole. But Kole can also mean held in the arms, not necessarily held on one's lap, but held in one's arms. And it would make more sense for the Lord to be dancing with after Haridas Thakur departed from this world, to be dancing holding Haridas Thakur's body in his arms while he's dancing. So, just mention that point. Adi-lila Barnijachin Brindavanadas Seva Amashishta Age Koriba Prakash. Srila Vrindavan Thakur has vividly described the pastimes of Haridas Thakur in his Chaitanya Bhagavat. Whatever has remained undescribed, I shall try to explain later in this book. Tara Upashaka Jata Kulina Gramijan Satyaraj Adi Tara Kriparabajan. One sub-branch of Haridas Thakur consisted of the residents of Kulina Gram. The most important among them was Satyaraj Khan, or Satyaraj Vasu, who was a recipient of all the mercy of Haridas Thakur. Satyaraj Khan was the son of Gunaraj Khan and father of Ramananda Basu. Haridas Thakur lived for some time during the Chaturmasya period in the village named Kulinagram, where he chanted the holy name, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and distributed his mercy to the descendants of the Vasu family. Satyaraj Khan was allotted the service of supplying silk ropes for the Jagannath deity during the Ratha Yatra festival. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's answers to his inquiries about the duty of householder devotees are vividly described in the Adi-lila, chapter 15 and 16. The village of Kulinagram is situated 2 miles from the railway station named Janugram on the New Cord line from Howrah to Burdwan. Lord Chaitanya very highly praised the people of Kulinagram, and he stated that even a dog of Kulinagram was very dear to him. So this is Kulinagram, and it's mentioning Satyaraj Khan. So it says Satyaraj Khan was allotted the service of supplying silk ropes for the Jagannath deity during the Ratha Yatra festival, because when they're moving the Jagannath deity from the temple of Nilachala, the Jagannath temple, to the Ratha Yatra cars, the deity is very, very, very big and very heavy, and they help sustain and move the deities by silk ropes that are used to carry the Lord. So during the time of moving the deity, those silk ropes would sometimes break. Those ropes would break, and then Mahaprabhu told the Satyaraj Khan, you see, these ropes are breaking. You have to make better quality ropes than these. So Mahaprabhu allotted the duty of making stronger silk ropes to Satyaraj Khan, and he would bring them for the Ratha Yatra ceremony. And that mentioned that Kalinagram, that Mahaprabhu had so much affection for the people of Kalinagram, it said that even a dog from that village was very dear to him. And Mahaprabhu, and Satyaraj Khan would come to Jagannath Puri, and he, for several years, he asked Mahaprabhu, what is the, he asked Mahaprabhu, what should I do, especially as a grihastha, what should be my principal duties? And Mahaprabhu told him, always do Sankirtan, always chant the Maha Mantra, and also do Vaishnava Seva, serve the Vaishnavas. So then Satyaraj Khan would ask, who is a Vaishnava? So Mahaprabhu in successive years described the different classes of Vaishnavas. He said, anybody who has chanted the holy name of the Lord one time is to be considered as a Vaishnava. So that refers to, by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it says this especially refers to even the Kanishta Adhikaris, who is the third class devotee who is, just has, maybe in our modern terms would say, chanted the Lord's name one time. We would also say, in modern terms, has taken Harinam Diksha. That person should be offered respects within one's mind. We should respect that person as a devotee, even though they may be very new, but we should respect that person. And this can apply to the Kanishta Adhikari. And then, again, the question was asked, what is the duty, our duty? And Mahaprabhu replied to Satyaraj Khan, he said, chant the holy name and serve the Vaishnavas. And then he said, a second time he said, who is a Vaishnava? And Mahaprabhu said, anyone who is always engaged in the service of the Lord and is always thinking of the service of the Lord in Vrindavan. In other words, who's deeply absorbed in serving the Lord and always remembering Him. Mahaprabhu, it is your duty to serve that Vaishnava. And this has been said by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to refer to the Madhyamadhikaris. And Madhyamadhikari devotees have four characteristics. They are worship the Lord, make friends with the devotees, they are helpful to the inquisitive. In other words, give mercy to new persons and avoid the association of persons who are very inimical or critical of the Lord. In other words, who are kind of demoniac. Avoid those persons. So, but they're serving the Lord, serving the devotees, preaching to the innocent, and avoiding the association of persons who are very much against the Lord and His devotees. So that's Madhyamadhikari, middle class devotee. Then again, Satyaraj Khan asked, what is there? Then Mahaprabhu gave the definition when it was asked, who is a Vaishnava? Mahaprabhu said, that person who just by seeing him, you want to chant the holy name of the Lord. That is the first class devotee, and you should serve that devotee with your life. So that will refer to the Uttama Adhikari, the highest devotee, that is encouraging everyone just by seeing that person. Everyone is encouraged. So the Uttama and one of the qualities of first-class devotee, we can say he's not distinguishing between who's serving the Lord, who's not serving the Lord. He sees everyone as being, just by their existence, of having an eternal relationship with the Lord, and everything is happening by the Lord's will. So they're not saying who's favorable, who's inimical. I mean, they're very high. This is the very highest level of devotee. And no one can imitate that class of devotee. That is the Uttama Adhikari, the very exalted, pure Vaishnava. Just like. And it's like said of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, that Mahaprabhu, he told to Raghunath Das Goswami, he told him, don't dress too nicely, don't eat luxurious foods, and don't listen to Gramya Katha, don't listen to gossip, basically is what he said. So some persons might say, like even reading, they would say even reading the newspaper, for instance, could be considered as absorbing someone in Gramya Katha, a mundane news. But it was said about Srila Sridhar Maharaj. If Srila Sridhar Maharaj read the newspaper, that was as good as the Vedas, hearing the Vedas. Because everything that Srila Sridhar Maharaj did was so permeated with his divine consciousness that any activity that he did, and sometimes we would see that if he even read the news to you, you would get so much spiritual benefit. Or sometimes I remember in the early days, we go into the mott, and so many you could hear sometimes radios going, and people would be listening to the cricket matches, especially in the evening. You would sometimes hear that. And this was very different than, say, what people learned growing up in ISKCON, going into the mott, and then you're hearing or seeing some devotee, senior devotee, listening to a cricket match or something. Because cricket is very big, especially when they play Pakistan. And everyone is absorbed, and I could be lying in my room one time is near the road. I could be lying down in bed, taking rest, and a cricket match would be going on, and outside, the road outside my room, I'd hear people. All of a sudden, people would go, ah! So, whatever Srila Sridhar Maharaj was doing, and many of the devotees there, was just divine. Just divine. So, even if Srila Sridhar Maharaj reads the news, that's as good as hearing the Vedas. So that's the Uttama. That is an Uttama Adhikari. Just by seeing him, just by seeing the Uttama Adhikari, you want to chant the holy name. That's so different classes of devotees, and they're mentioned by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Shri Murari Gupta Saka Primera Bandar Prabhura Hridaya Drave Shuni Doinya Jar. Murari Gupta, the 21st branch of the tree of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was a storehouse of love of God, and his great humility and meekness melted the heart of Lord Chaitanya. Pratigraha nahi kore na loy koradan, atmavriti kore kore, kutamba baran. Srila Murari Gupta never accepted charity from friends, nor did he accept money from anyone. He practiced as a physician and maintained his family with his earnings, and we could say his meager earnings. Because physicians, nowadays, to be a physician, you're in the upper rungs of society. Doctors, surgeons, they're earning so much money. But in the days of Murari Gupta, he's a physician. He could hardly maintain his family with the earnings. And when I was with the Advaita Charan. He is a doctor, and we lived in Mexico, in Tulancingo, near Tulancingo. And Advaita Charan was a doctor, and we were in the countryside. So sometimes he get calls from people, especially for deliveries, women who would have children. And he was so expert that if the child was wrongly positioned in the womb, normally in modern hospitals they just do a cesarean to take out the child, but he could reach in and reposition the child. If it had his feet toward coming out, which would block the child being delivered, he could reach in and reposition the child. He was very good at deliveries. And I remember one time, one man came who had been stabbed in the neck with a knife, and the knife was still there in his jugular vein. And Advaita didn't take out the knife. He put the man in the car and took him to a village, I don't know, over a half hour away, but left the knife in the man's neck. And then the man's life was attended to in the hospital, and then they could remove the knife and save the man's life. But if Advaita takes the knife out of his neck, he bleeds to death. But we were in the countryside, and people would pay him for a delivery, like with a basket of cauliflowers. That would be his pay.
That's still going on, Maharaj.
What?
I think that's still going on.
Is it?
I think so.
Yeah. In other words, he received practically nothing for and he was a very good doctor. Now we're here, speaking of Murari Gupta, was a doctor. Another famous doctor here was Pushta Krishna. And Pushta Krishna, one of the things about him, he was a very good doctor. He was a surgeon. He was a surgeon. He was a very sought after surgeon, but was very good. Almost so many of the people who came to see him became devotees, because Pushta Krishna never stopped preaching to people. Day and night he was preaching to people. If you got into a conversation with Pushta Krishna, he'd be preaching. The whole time he's always thinking about and talking Krishna Katha. He was very, very good in that respect. I very much appreciated him, his absorption in Krishna Katha. And he and his wife, Daru Brahma, they were very his wife still remains, but very devoted to ISKCON and very devoted to Srila Prabhupada. And yet at the same time, Pushta Krishna went one time to a program to see Srila Govinda Maharaj. And just seeing Srila Govinda Maharaj, he was so enchanted that he became very involved with our ashram. Despite his family being very much sought after and appreciated in ISKCON, Pushta Krishna became very devoted to Srila Govinda Maharaj. And that program I remember because we did it in Loudon Nelson Center, I think it was. And Govinda Maharaj, the stage was quite high, and Govinda Maharaj, not young obviously, Govinda Maharaj jumped off the stage down below and to dance with the devotee, with the guests and devotees. He jumped off the stage to to dance with it, or be with the people who were dancing. And people went wild when Govinda Maharaj did that. And I couldn't believe it, you know. I walked to the edge of the stage and I'm looking. Govinda Maharaj just, you know. So Bhakti Krishna became very attracted. And people told me of, as I mentioned before, in Mexico also people told me who were with devotees of Prabhupada, they said that Govinda Maharaj reminded them so much of Srila Prabhupada. And I think that's also how Pushta Krishna was attracted. But I'm mentioning Pushta Krishna, Advaita Charan, because they're doctors. And here, Murari Gupta, he's a doctor. Murari Gupta never accepted charity from friends, nor did he accept money from anyone. He practiced as a physician and maintained his family with his earnings. But his earnings were very meager. He was a physician, but he was very poor. Okay. And here also, Chikitsa Korana Jari Hoya Sadai Deho Roga Baba Roga Dui Tarakoi. As Murari Gupta treated his patients, by his mercy, both their bodily and spiritual diseases subsided. In other words, he cured them of their diseases and he cured them spiritually. So, huh?
That's my kind of doctor.
Yeah, that's a real doctor. And that's also, there's also a description of Mukunda, who's, I think Mukunda's the father of Raghunandan?
Yes.
And he was a royal physician. But he was such an exalted devotee. And he's a royal physician, and he was a physician of the Muslim royalty. And one time, they kind of shielded a Muslim king from the sun or something. They held up a peacock fan, and Mukunda sing the peacock fan, you know, and held above the king's head somehow or other. He lost consciousness and fell to the ground from an elevated platform. So the king and others came down quickly. They thought Mukunda was dead, having fallen from that distance. But he wasn't hurt. He was just in ecstasy and he had fallen down. And then the king said, "Well, what happened?" And Mukunda said, "Oh, I have some disease like epilepsy that made me fall." But he didn't say that I was in ecstasy. I fell by seeing the peacock fan and everything. But the king was wise, and the king knew, no, he fell because he's a liberated soul. The king could understand that. And Mahaprabhu told that Mukunda, who is also a physician, he said that your duty is to earn material wealth earn material wealth and also benefit everyone spiritually. You know, to earn both. In other words, earn material wealth to maintain yourself, and also to benefit everyone spiritually. You will benefit them materially and spiritually. So sometimes the word Kaviraj can mean a poet, but Kaviraj can also mean a physician. The Kaviraj kind of caste can also be physician caste. Because Mahaprabhu says, Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadishai Kamai Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatad Bhaktira Hai Tukitmai. The Kavi there refers to poet. I do not want wealth or followers or beautiful wife or to have the fame of a poet, which is it's associated with dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So moksha is kavi is allusion to moksha. To be anyway. The only thing I want in your life is, in my life, is your service, birth, after birth. So it's. I think I'll end here. Tomorrow we'll continue. Oh, okay. Hare Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Vindaram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Mananamohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktivedanta Jai Rupa Sanatana Bhakta Raguna Shriva Gopala Bhatta Rasa Raguna Jai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Javaite Vignana Shabista Puran Jai Gosai Jarmuni Taranas Tassavar Padarenu Mora Panchagas Kader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Janame Janame More Abhilas Jai Gosai Jabe Braje Koilabas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriya Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Nara Tamoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Jo Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramasa Paravaja Kacharya Ashtatara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramasa Paravaja Kacharya Ashtatara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtatara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Rakakshira Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivedanta Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Namachar Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath, Shadgo Swami Prabhu Ki Jai, Premasigo, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasudhi, Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Vishvavarenya Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srila Bhakti Kusham Ashram Maharaj Ki Jai, Srila Bhakti Tilat Neri Maharaj Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Namadeep Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapur Ki Jai, Saparshada Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, Saparshada Shriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai, Shri Koladvip Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai, Soquel Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram Ki Jai, Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopi Govardhan Shyam Kuna Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Ju Ki Jai, Shri Purushottam Madam Ki Jai, Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Ju Ki Jai, Bhakti Vigna Vinashaya Shri Nrsingadev Ki Jai, Bhakta Prabhara Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Shri Kartik Brata Ki Jai, Shri Damodar Brata Ki Jai, Shri Niyama Seva Ki Jai, Shri Urja Vrata Ki Jai, Shri Vishaka Devi Ki Jai, all the assembled devotees Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj Ki Jai.